Welcome back, guys. Week 7 of our NFL season is in the books, and we have taken control of the NFC West as we defeated the Seahawks in Seattle. Before we get started, remember to like, comment, subscribe, turn on the notifications down below, and let's get straight into talking about what happened in this past game. This was one of our closest games of the year, made even more difficult being in front of the 12s, but we found a way to come out on top 24-16, and let's recognize how we got there. We knew this was going to be a defensive showdown, and it was, as both teams were held to near 250 total offensive yards each. And we'll start with talking about this forever menacing Seahawk defense. Their leading tackler on the day was their eventual Hall of Famer, Bobby Wagner. If we were wondering how he has found himself near the top of the leaderboard for tackles this season, we found out, as he finished with 10 today, with one of them dropping us behind the line for a loss. The main thing that worked for us against this unit was running the ball. Our running back duo continued to get solid gain after gain, totaling over $110 on the ground, and Connor found his way into the end zone for the second straight week to get us our first score of the day. And what was not working was our pass game. Their secondary was locked down, and they held Colt McCoy under 200 yards on the day. He made some big throws along the way, but this offense loves to air it out, and every time they tried, it ended up being batted down incomplete by this defense. Our best pass catching performance came from the rookie Michael Wilson. He ended up bringing in 6 on the day, and he got the sole passing touchdown on the day as they sent him on a one-on-one end zone fade and goes up and rips it down for the score. But the big story is how they locked down Hollywood after his career game the week prior. He finished with just 1 catch when we targeted him a lot more. But it wasn't only the secondary that was causing us trouble, but the Seattle pass rush as well, as they got home for the sack 5 times. We'll start with the only guy to double his sacks, Yannick Ngakoue. His first came near the end of the half, as his sack forced the punt, which led to their crossbar bouncing field goal. The second came near the end of the third, as he flew in untouched off the outside and got in to drop him for a loss of 10. The rookie rusher, Mike Morris, got his sack at a critical moment, saving a potential touchdown as Wilson was breaking wide open in the end zone as he got home. Now, the final sack of the game came from the former Steeler, Devin Bush. Seattle blitzed, sending him in for the pressure, and he sent down McCoy for a loss of 9. But if we move back to the middle of the first quarter, we saw the first sack of the day come from the 5th-year safety, Julian Love. He was the lucky one to get called in for the blitz, and he forced the 3 and out. But his day was not done there, as when we found ourselves inside the red zone, down by 3, we took a last shot for the end zone, and Love makes a super athletic play to come away with an interception after contorting his body in the air and gets his squad out of a tight situation. But this was a defensive battle from both sides, as we responded on the very next play as our safety, Jalen Thompson, took a perfect angle to the ball, cut off Fant, and with a huge block from Wilson, punches in the pick 6 to give us the lead we would not forfeit for the rest of the game. Now, the Thompson interception was not the only trouble Geno Smith faced in this game, as we held him to 212 yards and a poor completion percentage of just 53. The start of this came from us focusing on keeping DK Metcalf on check, which we did to a point, holding him to just 3 catches for 51 yards. But when we had him shut down, they looked to their number 2, one of the best under-the-radar number 2 receivers in this league, Tyler Lockett. He found his way to 7 receptions on the day, going for just under 80 yards. While the coverage was very good for us for most of the game, the driving force for our defense, much like it has been for most of the year, has been our work in the trenches. As a team, we finished with 8 tackles for loss, which outside of a few explosive runs, kept the second-year Kenneth Walker in check, holding him to 51 yards on the ground. But they came back at the very beginning of the second half, and it was our second-round pick, B.J. Ojulari, to take the first shot, as he won against the tackle and not only got to Geno, but he knocked the ball out, forcing the fumble, and Seattle was lucky to find it back. But they could not avoid disaster twice, as later on that same drive, as the Seahawks got inside field goal range, it was Clelin Ferrell, the guy who got to Geno. He forces another fumble, and this time it paid off, as Bryce Huff flies in to scoop up the ball and secure the turnover to keep those potential points off the board. Before we leave, we gotta show some fullback love to Seattle's rookie, Hunter Lipke. They gave it to him 2 plays in a row in a goal-to-go situation, and he powered his way in for the sole touchdown on the day for them in a losing effort. After the game, we got a text from Clelin Ferrell, and he told us to roll out the red carpet because he has arrived. He asked if we saw him out there and that he is an anchor on this defense. And with that, Clelin Ferrell has earned himself star development. And along with that, he also earned himself 5,000 XP. And that may have just solidified his spot on this team for years to come. We then met with Michael Wilson in the locker room, and he said he was ready to go heading into this week, but things just didn't go his way once the game started, and that he needs to be better than that. And we said don't lose any sleep over it. He will have plenty of opportunities to step up, and that he can use this moment as motivation when that time comes. Unfortunately, we missed out once more on the dev trait, but he has a ton of play ahead of him to break out with. Just before we sim to the next week, the only negative that we have to mention, and it is in regards to the one Lecky Fotu suffered near the end of the game. It was diagnosed as an abdominal tear and will be keeping him out of action for the next 3 weeks. So, with subpar play at the position and injuries to our only 2 on the roster, we decided to make a move. We went out and signed the 26-year-old Roy Lopez off the Texans practice squad. Just a very solid option at the position. He has done the job in Houston for the past 2 seasons, along with the year before at the University of Arizona, and now we will be giving him the opportunity. If he plays well enough, he may find himself staying on our active roster for the next year. And to open up the roster spot, we decided to place Carlos Watkins on IR for the remainder of the season. Now, while this is unfortunate for him that he will be healthy but unable to play, we can save the cap to use it as rollover for next year, and we can look to move younger at the position. We then returned to our negotiation table for contract extensions, and we started with our biggest priority, bringing back Hollywood Brown. He is continuing to grow into a top 10 receiver in the league, and we want to lock that up for years to come. So, we offered him a deal for 5 years worth $83.5 million, averaging $9 million a year in salary. And he said even though he wasn't looking to return, this offer is getting real tempting, which means we are very close to that special day. After that, we moved on to Isaiah Simmons. We still wanted to keep his deal low as he hasn't proven himself just yet, but we know he has the potential. So we offered him a 3-year deal worth $22.2 million, averaging $4.1 a year in salary. And he said it was unacceptable, even when considering that he wants to continue playing here, so still more work to be done. Following 2 misses, we then had a new player to focus on, our new star edge rusher, Clelin Ferrell. He has a ton of interest in being here, and he could be a great force in our front 7. So, we sent him a lowball offer, which was 2 years worth $11.2 million a year, averaging about $2.6 in salary. And he said, we know he loves this team, but this deal is just wrong. So this week, we end up going 0 for 3 in negotiations. We then moved over to our coaching talent trees, and with some points to spend, we upgraded Pocket Setter, which will increase XP gains for left and right tackles by 5%. We know this line needs to improve, and that starts with the continued development of Paris Johnson. It was then time to check out the news headlines across the NFL for this week. It looks like one of the draft prospects by the name of Mark Bradford is making waves at the running back position with his massive quads and an impressive squat to go with them. It looks like there was another divisional classic on the East Coast as the Commanders came away with a 24-21 victory at MetLife against the Giants. And in the matchup of the week, it was the Kansas City Chiefs who defended Arrowhead, defeating the Chargers in a close 31-28 game that could have gone either way. The second version of this year's mock draft has been released, and we took some time to preview what the first round could look like. With New Orleans yet to win a game on the year, They are projected to get the number 1 pick, and with it, take the tackle out of Penn State, Brian Mackey. We see the Rams as our first division mate on the board, projected for number 6, and they have them taking the defensive end out of Arkansas, Zeke Carrington. Our first round pick from the Texans is currently expected to sit at 9, and with it, they see us taking the Oklahoma QB, Curtis Atkins. As we move on to the middle of the round, we see San Francisco slotted at 14, and with it, analysts see them taking the receiver out of Auburn, Jonathan Harrison. With our current hot streak, we are projected to have the 27th pick, and with it, take another quarterback, Charles Morgan, out of LSU. They see Seattle finishing as the NFC runner-up, and with the 30th pick, taking the free safety out of Michigan, Warren Peters, to help solidify their dominant secondary. And the currently undefeated Ravens are projected to win it all, and with the number 32 pick, take the Clemson tackle, Malachi Tate. And those undefeated Ravens are going to be our problem, as it is now time for us to look forward to our upcoming matchup as we welcome Baltimore into our building. A team that was recognized as one of the favorites to win the AFC before the season even began. They have won 7 straight to start the year, and now we have to find a way to slow down this dominant squad. And that starts with trying to do the impossible, slowing down Lamar Jackson. He is one of the best quarterbacks this league has to offer, and he does it different than anyone else in the league. He is such a threat with his speed and elusiveness as a runner. He leaves defenses guessing what to do next all day long. And he exemplified that dual threat ability last week in their dominant win against Detroit, in which he had 4 total touchdowns with 3 coming on the ground. And if Lamar is Batman, his Robin is tight end Mark Andrews. An All-Pro just 2 years ago, multiple-time Pro Bowler, he is one of the best in the league at the position, and he is the safety net in the run or the pass for this offense. But he has yet to find the end zone thus far on the year, and he would love to change that against us this week. On defense, their secondary is led by their superstar corner, Marlon Humphrey. He is one of those guys that can completely take a receiver out of the game, and we have to be careful throwing his way, as he picked off Jared Goff in his last game, and he can't wait to do it again. But quite possibly their best player on this defense is the former Bear, Roquan Smith. He was brought over from Chicago at the trade deadline last year in exchange for both a 2nd and 5th round pick. And after finishing his phenomenal All-Pro season from a year ago in Baltimore, he's looking to see what he can achieve with a full season in this new defense. So now that we know who we're going up against, it's time to figure out what the game plan will be heading into this huge game. Starting on defense, this is one of the trickiest teams to play against, as we already talked about the danger of the dual threat, and it only got worse when they signed Kareem Hunt earlier this year. So, our focus is going to be to contain the QB scramble. When Jackson can get himself out of the pocket on the run, that is when he is most dangerous. So, if we can stop that from happening, we have a much better shot in this one. Now, moving over to the offense. This is one of the scariest units we will face all year long. They have a great secondary, they have great linebackers, and we're going to attempt to throw the medium pass in this one. We are at our best when we are passing rather than running, and we just have to hope guys like Hollywood Brown, who is going to have his revenge game, might I add, are able to make some big plays against this stout defense. After that, we were ready to set our goals heading into this Week 8 matchup. To start us off, short and simple, we want to win the turnover battle. The Ravens are the better team on paper. However, turnovers can change a game very quickly, and if we can win that battle this week, it improves our odds drastically. Next up, we want to produce at least 300 offensive yards. This is going to be a challenge, as we are already expressed how dangerous this defensive squad is, but we are going to need that production to find the W today. In regards to our defense, we want to keep them under the 25-point threshold. We can't truly believe that we can shut down this dynamic offense, but if we attack this right and our offense gets going, you never know what could happen. And lastly, let's get ourselves an interception. Year after year, we hear a narrative written about how Lamar isn't quarterbacky enough. And let's take this chance to prove them right. Let's keep him in the pocket, force him to pass, and see if we can come away with one. We then moved on to our training for the week, and we have no injuries to speak of, but we had some key growth from some of our most important players. Starting with our first round pick, Harris Johnson. He's done an amazing job protecting McCoy thus far his rookie year, and he improved in his awareness, run blocking, and more specifically, his run blocking against power moves. Next up was Jalen Thompson, a guy who is one of the best leaders this team has, and he had the biggest play of the day in our most recent win with the pick six, and he grew in his awareness and zone coverage. And our final player of note was our rookie receiver, Michael Wilson. He may not be meeting his own stellar expectations, but he's been a great number 2 in his first season after leaving Stanford, and he further developed his catching in traffic along with his deep and short route running. And with that, we have discussed everything on the agenda, and we are ready to move on to next week's massive game. If you guys enjoyed, remember to like, comment, subscribe, turn on those notifications down below, and I will catch you all next time as we take on the undefeated Baltimore Ravens.